What's up, y'all? What's good? Welcome to the What Up Doe Show. It's your boy Dame D, and I am back with another one. What's good, y'all? What's good? Let me check my audio and video before we get today's conversation started. Got to start making sure I do that because the other day, like I said, I was on the broadcast. I started streaming and did not realize that I was on there talking for about 15 minutes and no one can hear me. Normally I always check that, but again, what up, though? What up, though, everybody? Good afternoon to everybody out there on Facebook, everybody out there on YouTube and Instagram. And I'm gonna add some more places to start streaming live from. I just start off with those three because it seems like when I have a lot of other places to stream it, I'm having a lot of difficulties with my internet, so I'm only able to do three at a time, but we're going to try to start doing more, at a time. But what's good, y'all, man? Anyway, I'm going to check my audio and video to make sure I can be heard and make sure you guys can hear me before I start talking. Find out that I cannot be heard. Hold on. Okay, so we can definitely be heard. So I'm going to come out of here. So what's good, y'all? What's good? It's your boy birthday today. I just want to come on and chop it up with everybody today. I woke up. The Lord woke me up to see another day to celebrate. Not to celebrate, but to see another birthday, I should say. So I just wanted to come on here and chop it up with you guys this afternoon. And we look, and I need for everybody on Facebook. Look, this is my birthday wish. This is all I want from every. What up, though, James Sanders? Thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate it, bro. This is all I want from everybody over on Facebook because I have a lot of Facebook and friends. And if everybody went over to the channel on YouTube and hit that subscribe button, your boy is less than 13 subs away from 1K. And I want to do it today. So we're gonna talk pretty much today until we get them 13 subscribes. But what's going on, James Sanders, man? I missed you last night. I saw that you made a comment in there. Thanks for the birthday wishes. I appreciate you, man. Thanks for all the support and all the comments, man, that you always gave to your boy. You're one of my you're one of my main go-tos, man, when I'm having conversations and things like that. So I definitely appreciate you, man, and everything you've done thus far. Definitely appreciate you. I got to bring you up here one day, man. I would love for you to come up here and chop it up with me, James. But again, James Sanders, 1027, I want to thank you again for wishing me a happy birthday, man, and just for being, a subscriber to the channel and always supporting me and, and supporting my content, I should say. Yeah, but yeah, man, your boy is 51 years old today. 51, man. The Lord blessed me to wake up to see another day. I have my grandchildren calling me, wishing me happy birthday. My mom called me. My uncle called me. And my siblings and stuff like that. All of my siblings. So, I'm feeling good, man. I was gonna get up and go to work today, but was having a little little issues with my elbow, so I had to take off today, and I just going to relax and not do too much of anything. Let me make sure I can. Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure everybody can hear me because the other day, man, I was on here, James, the other day for about 10 minutes and did not know that I could not be heard until I actually looked at the comments, man. But we had a great conversation. That's why I saw your comment last night, James. We had a great conversation. We were talking about the ongoing conversation with this Nolan Wells situation, and then we were just talking about we had a few topics we talked about last night. We were talking about snitching and like how the black community put too much into snitching and things like that. But mainly we conversated and we talked about the whole Nolan Wells situation. Yeah. But yes, I want to thank everybody, man, who's been rocking with your boy thus far. We are getting ready to hear. What up, though, Corey Stewart? Thanks, man. Thank you. I appreciate you. Mustang forever, for sure. Lynch mob, baby. Yeah, but I want to thank everybody, man, who's been rocking with your boy thus far. We set out a goal 2 years ago, and we are there. I thought I was gonna hit it a little faster, and like I was talking the other day, man. It is not easy. Trying to do this YouTube thing, man. Especially, I do everything by myself. I've been learning everything along the way. I thought it was going to be a lot easier than what it is, but it is not as easy as a lot of people make it look. Some people hit that mark, that 1K mark, a lot faster. I work a full-time job, so I cannot dedicate a lot of my time to do this. I do it on my free time. I love doing this. I love talking, but like I said, man, this has been a goal that I've been trying to reach, and we 13 subs away. So I need everybody that's on Facebook, man. All my Facebook family and friends, because if everybody on Facebook was to come over to YouTube and hit that sub button, your boy would be, I'll well surmount that 13 subs that I need. So that's all I want for my birthday. I just want everybody to go over to my channel and hit that sub button. That's it. Yeah. But yeah, man, the Lord woke me up. Blessed to see another birthday. 51 years old today, man. I feel good. Feel great. James Sanders made a comment. He said, "You realize you reach a nationwide, don't you?" I can't explain that again, James. You realize you reach nationwide, don't you? Yeah, man, we're getting there. We're getting ready to be nationwide. So I need everybody. And like I said, James, man, you definitely been one of the one of my go-tos, man, in the comments when we're having great conversations, great topics, and it's fun, man. Like I said, at the end of the day, I do this because I love it. And I just love trying to put out, just put great information out there to the people and trying to also entertain you guys. And I'm also going to try to bring some new stuff too that I want to start bringing, like a movie night, just talk about certain movies or series and things like that. You know what I mean? So we're going to start trying to add a little bit more different stuff to the show, and conversate about a lot of, different stuff. But as of lately, man, we've been talking about this Nolan Wells situation. That's been a deep conversation. We talked about that last night. I think most people at the end of the day just want justice for this young man's family and really want to know what happened to this young man, because he could have been anyone's brother, son, cousin, family member, so we just want to see justice. We know what's been going on down there in Mississippi for decades. And it has not stopped. This young man lost his life. James Sanders made a comment, said, if you can reach Texas, I'm sure they can see you in Arizona. You're right, man. You're right. Especially once you get across that 1K mark, man, YouTube start putting, my stuff out to a lot of more people that have not saw the channel, so, but one thing about this, man, I've been working on trying to get my editing skills up. I've been doing, I hired people to come out, done that, to help me out with certain stuff that I needed to learn how to work. But I'm trying to get this editing down, man. I need to I just really just don't have too much time to to put into it and I'm not going to say trying to learn it on my own, but want to get it done quick. So I'm probably have to bring somebody in and teach me, or pay somebody to come in again, because I got all the software and everything that I need to be able to do all that. It's just really the time. So, and that's one of the things that I want to add to the show, to be able, because for right now, man, everything that I'm doing when I come on here, I'm not editing or doing anything. Everything is raw. I don't go back and correct anything. I just put everything out there as it is. On the live shows, I should say. I do know how to edit somewhat, but what I want to know, what I want to get down and get better at editing is like adding the special effects. I want to add my different introductions into my show with my theme music, because I also have theme music, but I don't play it. I used to play it in the beginning when I first started, but I took it out and I actually had somebody professional make me a theme song, and I need to add that to my show. So really I just been waiting on, just trying to get my editing skills up, man, and that's it. So I just been trying to build this thing from the ground up, man. I've been doing, like I said, doing it in my spare time. And that's it. James Sanders said those white folks in Ole Miss are going to make sure that Nolan Wells situation blow over. Yeah, man, that's what they're trying to do, James. I think at the end of the day, they did not think that, you know, they didn't think that we were going to watch this story. They didn't think we were going to cover it as much as we did. And what I mean as we black folks, you know, we've been in tune to the story. We're not going to let this story go get swept under the rug. You know, and we know, and especially from hearing that conversation that happened on the boat, man. You know, a lot of us was in you know, we really did not know what happened to that young man. You know, it was a chance that he probably could have drowned. But after hearing, you know, what Janetta Brown did with that conversation, man, and hearing what those so-called friends were plotting and what they did on that boat, man, you know, that's a situation that, you know, and I want to give a big ups to everybody, you know, who spoke on this case and who kept that case alive. You know what I mean? You know, so yeah, you know, they tried to sweep it up under the rug, James, but, you know, in my opinion, you know, it's been too many of us talking about it, trying to keep it alive. And with that, you know, you can't sweep that up under the rug. You know, but they're going to try their best. I tell you what, you know, they trying their best, and they doing good at trying to hush people and shut people up. You know, they've even came out with a list of black social media podcasters that have been talking about this, man, and trying to, you know, scare them away at being sued. You know, they sent a lot of cease and desist letters out to a lot of people who talked about this. Thank you for the happy birthday. I appreciate it. Yep. So, but yeah, man, it's your boy birthday. Thank you, Jada. I appreciate you, Jada. If you are not a subscriber to the show, please hit that subscribe button. Your boy is trying. We are less than 13, I believe, 13 subs away from 1K. So I need everybody that's on Facebook, and then I need everybody that's on YouTube that's watching that has not hit that sub button. Please hit it. Your boy is, like I said, less than 13 subs away. So, you know, we're gonna be talking about this all day. You know, and then at the end of the day, James, man, yeah, like you said, they already ruled it. Well, no, they're saying that they're trying to rule it as a drowning, but you know, they didn't even send this young man lungs over to the second examiner to be examined. Therefore, you know, they're hiding something. So we know what it is, man. You know, but at the end of the day, man, the Lord woke me up to see another birthday. Your boy is 51 years old today. I feel good. I feel great. You know, and I just need for everybody to hit that subscribe button, you know, and I will feel a lot better, you know. You know, it'll make it a great birthday, I should say. Yeah, but again, thank you, Jada Wanda, for the birthday wishes. And please hit that subscribe button if you have not already hit it thus far. You know, but yeah, man, we had a great conversation. James, we were talking about that last night, man. The state of Mississippi, man, they're under a microscope. You know, they thought that they were going to be able to sweep this up under the rug, but it's been too many of us on this story, man. You know, too many. And Janetta Brown, man, she busted wide open. You know, and they're trying to discredit this woman. They're trying to make us think that we did not hear what we heard on that audio. You know, and that's what's crazy to me, y'all. They're trying to sweep that up under the rug. You know, they're trying to make us forget about what we heard on that videotape. You know, so I'm going to continue to talk about this until they start indicting these so-called friends. Yeah, but again, I want to thank everybody who's been wishing me happy birthday today. Your boy turned 51 years old today. Just relaxing and chilling out. I really don't have any plans of doing anything. I got to work tomorrow. So I'm really not going to do too much of nothing, but just relax and chill. James Saunders made a comment. He said they are sending scare tactics about suing podcasters and YouTubers to make y'all shut up about that. That's a fact. You know, it's a list, and there was a list of you know, and pretty much it was all, you know, all black YouTubers and social media people who were talking about that. They didn't send none of it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you know, but I believe it was a list of all, you know, black podcasters that they sent a list out to pretty much to try to tell them to shut the fuck up and quit talking about it. But those are scare tactics. You know, we're going to continue talking about it, you know, because they are not the only ones who have lawyers. You know, so, you know, and at the end of the day, man, you know, how can you sue anybody for wanting to know the truth of what happened? You know, and that's what's going on. So, you know, those scare tactics are pretty much not scaring anybody, because if anything, you know, most of those people that was on their list turned up even harder after they sent that list out. Yeah, man. But again, I want to thank everybody who has supported the show. You know, we've been doing this for 2 years. You know, and I thought that I would have reached this goal by now. But look, it is not as easy as a lot of people make it seem. You know, a lot of people come on here and probably do it, you know, within a year, within months. You know what I mean? You know, but like I said, I work a full-time job. I do this sparingly, you know, so I have not, you know, put all my time into doing this, but I put majority of a lot of my time. You know, it's hard work, you know, like I said, you know, coming up here, trying to entertain you guys, trying to bring you guys accurate news, and, you know, and just update you guys on what's going on throughout the country, you know, because as we know and as we see, the mainstream media does not, you know, do their due diligence at putting out, you know, all the accurate information that we need. You know, they only put out what they want us to hear. You know, so what we do over here is we put out news that the mainstream media won't put out and won't inform you guys about. You know, so that's what I try to do over here. You know, I try to talk about situations that most of you guys, you know, may not hear about that goes on throughout the country, you know, because I don't know if a lot of you guys been noticing, but, you know, it's been a lot of our people. And what I mean by that, you know, African-American people coming up dead. You know, and what I mean by that, it's been a lot of our people hanging out with their so-called white friends, you know, and I want to say this too, you know, I have a lot of white friends that I associate with, you know, and I don't want them to get the wrong idea, you know, because most blacks can attest to this. We don't, you know, growing up, our parents never taught hatred, never taught us to, like, look at color. They explained the situations of racism and you know, and, you know, and we learned racism through school and things like that, you know, but, you know, our parents never taught us to hate, you know, a group of people, you know, whites, Chinese, or anything like that. You know, they taught us to respect people, you know, by their character and their trait, you know, and things like that, you know, not by their color of their skin, you know. So, you know, I think most blacks, you know, we are, and this may, and this is, and most blacks can contest to this, man. We are overly friendly to most people that we come in contact with, you know. So all this hatred shit that you know, that these racist whites, and not all whites, you know, because like I said, I have a ton of white friends that are great, you know, to me, I'm great to them, that respect me for who I am, you know, and that's it, and that's how it should be, you know. But it's been the elites who has separated us and put us against each other. You know what I mean? And that's what's really going on. You know, they capitalize off us being separated, you know, and that's just what it is. You know, so we have to talk about things like that. So, and that's why I'm not really explaining myself. That's why I'm trying to explain the situation. You know, and this has started, this was long ago. You know, the elites were trying to protect their money and what they earned and what they had. So they came up with a plan to be able to keep, you know, the masses of the people from taking what they had, you know, and they came up with this whole race issue thing, you know, and that's why we're separated, you know, because it you know, it allows them to be able to keep their money, keep their riches, their and everything, and keep us separated and arguing amongst each other, I should say. You know, so at the end of the day, man, you know, look, we have to do a better job at, you know, teaching, you know, our children to respect people, you know, from their character, their creed and not their color, you know, because this whole racial shit, man, it's no, in my opinion, you know, it probably will never stop, but it can stop, you know, if the right people come out and start talking to their people and start this shit, you know, at a young age, you know, because this shit is being taught, you know, this is learned behavior, you know, and most blacks, like I say, we do not teach this shit to our children. We don't teach to be hateful towards whites or any other race, you know, so this is a learned behavior. This is a behavior that's taught by, you know, evil people. You know, so at the end of the day, man, you know, that's all we try to do over here. We just try to talk about conversations and topics that, you know, most mainstream media will not talk about, and just try to inform people. So that's what we do over here, man. So it's important for you guys to continue to hit that sub button. Your boy is going to continue to stay at it, try to bring accurate and just great entertainment and news to you guys. You know, that's you know, that's part of my job over here. You know, I take it serious. Like I said, you know, I'm going to start spending more time trying to, you know, do the editing part of the game. You know, and like I said, this is not easy. It's not easy trying to entertain and then trying to keep a conversation going and then trying to run everything at the same time. Yep. So I found out that it's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of issues you'll fall into, you know, with doing this whole podcast thing, man. You know, everything doesn't roll, you know, exactly like how you would thought it would roll, you know, when starting off. You know, it's not easy, you know, and I can attest to that. You know, but some people make it look easy. You know, but I tell you what, it is not, you know, but I love doing this. I'm going to continue to do it, you know, because I love sitting up here trying to talk and entertain and that, and also, you know, just educate people. And that's it. You know, that's what it's about. You know, it's just trying to inform and educate people and entertain at the same time, you know, and I love doing that. So again, I want to thank everybody who has subscribed to the channel, who has shared, you know, my content, you know, because that's what it's about. It's about networking, trying to get the information out there to the people so we can use the information and go from there, I should say. I'm gonna read off a comment that James Sanders said. Most of the decent white people are hurting because people are encouraging black people to start sending their kids out in groups to hang out alone. You know, yeah, you know, hey, listen, you know what's going on throughout this country. You have to start sending your children out in groups. You know, because we see what's going on. They're one by one. Systematically, our people are coming up dead, you know, by being hung and being drowned. You know, and what we got to get ahead of too is we have to do a better job at teaching our children how to swim. I thought this was a stereotype that most blacks couldn't swim. You know, because growing up in my era, like I'm 50, I just turned 51 today, and most of my classmates and my friends, we grew up swimming. You know, and like I said, I thought it was just a stereotype thing, but you know, it's just been too many stories that we've talked about, that you heard about young black men and women being drowned. You know, in most situations that we hear about them being drowned, it probably wasn't because they couldn't swim. You know, it's probably because they were forced up under the water. You know, and that's why we're staying on top of this Nolan Wells situation. You know, it doesn't make sense. You know, they're trying to cover this shit up, you know, and we just want to get to the bottom of this, you know, because we saw so many of our people being murdered and just unjust in this law system, you know, do time on charges that we see our counterparts, you know, just pretty much walk away or do, you know, minimum time. What up, though, Markeisha Alston? Thank you. I appreciate you. Look, and I'm asking everybody over there on Facebook to go over on my channel and on YouTube, the What Up Though Show, and hit that subscribe button. I'm asking everybody. That's all I want for my birthday gift. But I thank you, Markeisha, for the birthday wish. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yep. So if you are not a sub to the What Up Though Show, please go over on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Yeah, but I appreciate everybody who's been wishing your boy happy birthday. It means a lot. Yeah. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, most people just want justice for this young man's family. This young man was drowned. I mean, not drowned, but this young man was murdered, in my opinion, and they're trying to cover this situation up. They're trying to make us think that we didn't hear what we heard on that tape. That young woman, Janetta Brown, she busted that case wide open. See, and that's what they thought. They thought that they were going to be able to sweep that shit up under the rug. They thought that it was going to be a story that we were going to watch it and scroll through it. No, this it's been too many of these cases that's been going on throughout the years. Especially in my lifetime. I'm 51 years old. It's been so many cases, and thank God, of social media, because now we can bring this shit to the forefront. They cannot cover and hide this shit up no more. Social media can be a bad thing, but it can be used as a good tool too. And these are one of the tools. What I'm doing right here now. I'm using my platform to be able to, help this young woman try to get justice for her son. So therefore I need for you guys to like and make sure y'all sharing, things like this. Therefore it's prevalent and it'll get out there to people and it'll stay in the Facebook and the YouTube and the Instagram algorithm. James Sanders said, you don't think you don't think that was some AI tactics? What do you mean, James? With them using the cease and desist? Man, hey, listen, they're going to use all type of tactics to try to scare people away from talking about this situation. But I don't think it's going to work. I think only thing that's going to do is have people talking more about the situation, because like I said, man, the state of Mississippi, they've been murdering and covering up murders of black people for decades, and it's time to bring this shit to the forefront and put a closure, to all this racism and all this unjust unjust system that's been going down there in Mississippi, I should say. And let's talk about that. James Sanders said about the voice on the audio. Yes, we clearly hear what the fuck was going on them audios. And that's what's going on, man. The mainstream media is trying to make it seem like we didn't hear what we heard. They're putting out some of the original audio that was not broken down or that was not analyzing the distortion of them being out there on the water was not taken away. So only thing you can hear is just the young man talking to the rescue, and you don't hear what was going on in the background. And they want us to roll with that audio. And that's crazy. So if we allow for this shit, listen, I'm gonna say this: if we allow for them to come back with no indictments on none of these friends, and just let this shit ride and let them sweep this shit up under the rugs, each and every one of us should be, I'm just going to be honest, ashamed of ourselves for allowing some shit like this to happen. And therefore, we got to do some shit about that. I'm going to be honest, and I've been talking about that, and I do not condone violence, but in a situation like that, if they try to come back with some bullshit, we're going to have to start taking justice into our own hands. And that's the only thing really that they're going to respect. A lot of this shit that we see that's going on throughout the country, especially with some of these cases that we see with these officers shooting innocent black men that's running away and they're coming back with justified shootings. We got to start taking justice into our own hands, when it comes to a lot of these unjustified, shootings that's, I'm going to say homicides. A lot of that shit would stop overnight, if things start happening to them same motherfuckers who went out and murdered innocent people, in my opinion. And this is what this country, this is what this country is built on, man. It's built on, separating the people, racism, and the rich continue to get rich, while they put, the masses of the black and white against each other, when we should just be trying to live our lives and get along. And that's it. I think that's what most, blacks and whites want. We just really want to get along, and just raise our families and get along peacefully, I should say. Yep. So, yeah, man, I appreciate everybody. I appreciate James Saunders. He's definitely one of the, ones who's always interacting. And I love for everybody to interact. And, in the comment section, it definitely helps, my job easier by, reading the comments and interacting with you guys. James Sanders also made another comment. He said, go get your slab of barbecue ribs topped off with a birthday cake and a lot of ice cream, and enjoy your day off. This is your day for sure. You know what, James? And that's crazy that you said that. I did that last night. My wife, she took me out and we had barbecue. Well, actually, I went and got barbecue. It's this place called Shorty's. They make some really good barbecue down here, and I got some of that last night. So I started off last night with that. I had just brought my birthday in last night. Eating on some Shorty's barbecue and basically streaming, talking to you guys. And I think you came in on the end of the conversation too, James, because I saw your comment after we ended the show. But yeah, man, that was a great conversation. We had and shout out to Real Talk with Big Dave. My bad. Shout out to Real Talk with Big Dave. Shout out to my homegirl DJ Shiny D. And shout out to Joseph Knows. We had a great conversation. We talked about what we're talking about now, man, with this Nolan Wells case. And I need for you guys to go over, while you're over on YouTube, James, and I don't know if you hit the subscribe button over, but make sure you guys go over to Real Talk with Big Dave. Go over to his channel and hit that subscribe button too. He's a real good friend of mine, like a brother to me. He's out here putting out great content, man, and just trying to build his channel up too. So that's what it's about, man. It's all about networking and trying to help others out, especially people that help you out. It's all about networking, man. And just trying to build relationships with people. That's what it's about. Yeah. But yeah, man, I definitely appreciate you, James. You're always in the comment, man. Like I said, it makes my job easier when people is interacting in the comments, because like a lot of people think it's easy just trying to sit up here and talk. It's not, and I'm going to hook up my camera probably later on and show you guys, like, when I'm sitting here, I'm not just sitting here looking at the TV screen. I'm sitting here looking at I have a laptop, I have a mixer that I'm using. I have a camera switcher. I also have a teleprompter, but I don't use that at all. But like I said, camera switcher, and I have multiple cameras that I use, which I really don't use unless I have other people in here. But it's a lot, to deal with a one-man show. So pretty much I'm running a one-man show over here, so I'm trying to, I'm still learning all of my equipment and everything that comes with this, so I'm still trying to learn all this and then still trying to function and operate and run the show, especially when I'm having people coming in. So, I'm still trying to, like when I have guests on the show, it's not easy to, to be able to try to read all the comments, try to operate my equipment and interact with my guests that's on the show, and also interact with you guys, in the comment section, so it's not easy. A lot of people who've been doing this, and I want to give, I give credit to everybody, all the podcasters out there who have shows, man. Listen, and they'll tell you, it's not easy work. It's hard work at this. You put in a lot of hours editing stuff. And like I said, I don't even do any editing yet. Everything I do is just raw. I put everything out there raw. Yeah, even my not my live videos, my pre-shot videos, I should say. And I'm forgetting the name of what you call them, but but yeah, none of this stuff is easy. So I give a lot of credit to people out there that's doing this, man. That's successful. I'm just trying to, make it to that point. So, but like I said, I'm definitely learning this edited part of the game. And that's definitely one of the parts that you definitely need to know, and you definitely have to add to your show and to your skills, I should say. Yeah. So James, what's going on, man? What you got up for the day? It's what time is it? It is 2 o'clock. I would normally be at work getting ready to start up in about an hour. It's my birthday today, y'all. So I'm relaxing, I'm chilling out, talking with you guys. And everybody over there on Facebook, please come over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We got a lot of people on Facebook watching. I need for all you guys to make sure that you come over to the channel on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. I cannot do it without you guys doing that, and we're going to try to get that done today. I thought I would have it done. We talked about this months ago, James. I thought I would have had this done a while ago, but it's always something, I had an issue going on with my mixer. I was down for maybe about a month. So it's always something, man. But, you just got to stay at it and stay consistent. And that's it. So that's what we're trying to do over here on the What Up Though Show, man. We're trying to just stay consistent. We're trying to put out great content to you guys and just talk about. We have and that's one thing that we do over here on the What Up Though Show, man. We have our own. We have our own topics that we talk about, and we try to, bring you guys current events that you guys may not hear about or may not know about. Yep. So. So we try to mix it up, man. We do Freestyle Fridays where we allow, anybody who wants to come on. Where we have multiple topics where we talk about any and everything. Yeah. Yeah, man. So I thank the Lord for waking me up to see another day, and that's what it's about, man. Each day that you wake up is a blessing. A lot of people take that for granted. A lot of people think that they're supposed to wake up every day, and that's not true. So I take it day by day. Each day that you wake up is definitely a blessing. Because we never know, and that day may be the day that the Most High or the Lord, who or whatever you pray to, may call you home. James Sanders made another comment. He said, "You haven't dealt with what the other YouTubers haven't dealt with. Willie D in Houston, Texas, introvert rock star in Louisiana, got to deal with trolls, haters, and racist. Your job ain't easy." Now, listen, listen. I'm dealing with a lot of that. When we're talking about certain topics, James, all the racist motherfuckers comes out, and trust me, they troll. They send comments, they do all type of stuff. So I'm dealing with not as much as what Willie D deals with, because he has over 1 million subs. So I can't wait to have those problems Willie D have. But hey, listen, all comments are good comments. It comes with the territory, man. You're gonna have racist people come into your comment section and make racist comments. It is what it is. I still even read the racist comments. And reason why I do that is to show people, that racism it still exists and is thriving here in the United States. It'll never end. It'll never stop. Yep. So man, we just have to do our job and just try to, preach and spread love, and happiness, man. All this racist bullshit and just trying to, divide us is a plan of the elites. We're not getting no money off of it. It's not gonna, make my day go any better or your day going any better. Try to try to be racist towards a motherfucker, or try to hate a motherfucker because of what they look like. That's the stupidest. That is the most stupid and craziest shit ever when you really think about it. You hating another motherfucker because of what what they look like or what their skin color look like. That's crazy. And most people who are racist and think that way, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And if there is a God, you will be judged on that shit one day. Because he did not put us here to be fighting amongst each other. We were put here to be building and trying to make, this a great, happy place to get along and survive with each other with, not to be sitting up here fighting and hating. It's crazy. And I want to say what up, though, to Marcel Lee, Crispy Cell Cuts. Hopefully you guys had a great event at Spire Wars, man. What up, though, Q Jackson? Thank you for the happy birthday wish, man. Thank you. Q said, where the party at? It's right here, baby. We partying right here. We live on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Yeah. I might come down. We might do a little something at my mama's house tonight, man. I said I really just wanted to relax. I wasn't gonna do too much because I do have to work tomorrow. So and it's a motherfucker trying to go into work the day after party. I promise you that. Them days, them days are behind me, partying and trying to go to work. That was in my younger days. I still can do it, but I try not to do that. I try not to put my body through that bullshit no more. Yeah, I am not. I try to act my age sometimes. James Sanders said the only attack when you're reaching people and doing your job. Yeah, man. That's a fact. When you're reaching people and trying to do your job and when you're just putting out, just good vibes, man, it's always, you're always going to have evil people to try to come out and attack you, man, and you just have to realize that, we live in that type of world where, it's good and there's evil and, evil people will, come out and try to attack you. Especially when you're trying to put out a positive or a good message to the masses of the people. That's all we try to do over here, man. We try to just inform people on what's going on throughout the country, on most of our topics and conversations. And then we just try to, just put out good vibes. And that's it. I'm not up here trying to attack nobody. I'm not out here spewing hate, or teaching hate. Yeah, man, listen. And when you show up in the D, man, look, we're gonna either hit a Pistons game or a Lions game, or something like that, man, and just have a good time in the city. On me, James, too. So when you come down here, man, get at your boy for sure. Yeah, it's gonna be a good time, man. It's so much stuff to so much stuff to do and offer in the city of Detroit, man. I love my city. The city has come a long ways. They definitely have rebuilt the city. They're still rebuilding it. They're making it a better place for people to come back and live. I'm still staying on. I have not even moved back to the city, but I'm working on that. I'm trying to wait on the housing market to change back before I come back home. Yeah, man, so I can't wait till that day happens, James, when you come on down, man, and we're going to definitely hang out, and I'll show you around the town. But the city is definitely the place to be. And I'm so ready for this. Hey, James, look, I'm ready for what's going on with your Cowboys, man. You said flight or train, man. The best way is to fly, baby. And I do like trains, but if you coming from Houston, you're definitely going to want to take that flight. But I'm ready for football, man. How about them Lions? That's definitely my best. This is definitely my best time of the year. That's what, like, when my birthday roll around, I know it's football time. We're a month away from regular season. And this is the best time of the year. Don't get me wrong. I love the summertime. But in the work that in the working field that I'm in, the summertime, me and work it's horrible, so I can't, I love when the fall gets here, the temperature is changing. It's not going to be too hot outside, and it's football weather, it's football season. So most of all, we get to, get back into watching football and being entertained by, the Lions, man. Hopefully we have a great year. But this it wasn't too bad of a summer, meaning that the month of July I was off, so I wasn't inside working. I was, pretty much, at home. So hopefully we have a great rest of the year with the weather, and it stays at a, not too hot and not too, not too low, I should say. Yeah, but I'm definitely rather ready for fall, man. It's definitely been, in my opinion, it was a hot summer, and I'm ready for this 80, 90 shit to be over with. I'm cool with the 70s, high 70s and things like that. But when they get over 80, man, that's a little bit too much for me, in my opinion, especially when you're working inside. Now if I didn't have to work inside, it may be a little bit different. Don't get me wrong. I love a nice sunny day, but that 80, 90 shit, they can have that. I want to thank everybody who's been wishing your boy happy birthday. I got a lot of people that don't wish me happy birthday, and I appreciate all the birthday wishes. It definitely means a lot to your boy. Yep. How long we been on? It's been 46 minutes. Yeah, so you guys, we definitely we've been on here for 46 minutes. I'm going your boy's probably about to get something to eat. James Sanders made another comment. He said, I'm outside Dallas, not Houston. Okay. I'll be rooting for the Lions. Seattle took the title last year. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, man. Hey, them Lions, hopefully we have a great year. Hopefully, we're gonna have another great running tandem with Jahmyr Gibbs and your boy that we picked up. I forget his name. It's getting ready to come to me in a second. The Chiefs ex running back, Pachenko, I believe. I believe that's his name. Yep, man. And then our passing game is gonna do what it's gonna do. So hopefully Jameson, man, had a great off season. He worked on making sure that he holds on to that goddamn football. We'll be all right, man. And really, Jared Goff, man, we have to, hopefully we get that offensive line together, and we worked on making that offensive line a lot better to be able to guard Jared. And hopefully Jared worked on some of his foot movement during this offseason, and just trying to run some plays where he can actually get away from these blitzing defenses, because like I said, man, Minnesota opened up a lot of, opened up a lot of, shit for us, that game that we lost to Minnesota. It's like we went downhill after that Minnesota loss. They opened up, what's the word that I'm looking for? They just opened up a can of whoop ass that, that's pretty much, it exposed our offensive line, put it that way. Yep. So hopefully we worked on that, man. We got that shit together. We took care of the offensive line issues. One of our main issues too was that defense, man. We were hurting. We were hurting in the secondary. We lost one of our DBs, and that's definitely going to hurt. We had to let him go through some legal issues he had. I believe Terrion. Hold on. I believe. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to say the wrong name, but we lost one of our top DBs, so we had to go out and replace him. Yep. So, and we lost a few key players, man. We lost one of our good linebackers that I thought that was good, but that's the part of the game, man. You move on, and you just got to be able to next man up, and that's what it's about. But look, man, I'm not going to hold you guys up here too long. I just want to come on here for a little bit, and we're definitely going to come back. I just got to go ahead and get my day started. I woke up and pretty much just came on here and just just started, just went live and just started talking with you guys. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely about to get my day started. I just want to come on here for a hot second and chop it up with you guys. I want to thank James Sanders for all his comments, man. Definitely been a big part of the What Up Though show, man. You know, and I appreciate all your comments. I appreciate everything that you do for the show. And I can't wait for you to come on down, man, so we can catch one of these Lions games. So look, I need for each and every one of you guys that's over on Facebook to come over to the channel, come over to YouTube, go What Up Doe Show and hit that subscribe button, man. It's definitely going to help your boy out. Your boy is probably less than, hopefully we're less than 10 subs away. I'm going to go look. I haven't looked since I've been live talking to you guys, but I need for each and every one of you guys to go over to my channel on YouTube, the What Up Doe Show, and hit that subscribe button. It's going to help your boy out. You know, we're going to be putting out, continuing to put out more content, man. You know, and as we hit this 1K mark, man, more of our content will be put out there. Will be more prevalent in the YouTube algorithm. They're going to be putting more of our content out, and we'll be able to reach more viewers, and just go from there, man. You know, we started this thing from the bottom. You know, like I explained, I'm just doing this all by myself, no help. I do this sparingly. I have a full-time job that I work, but this has been a goal that I set out, and we are there, and I could have not done it without you guys. So I want to thank everybody, again, everybody who has shared all my content, who has hit that like button, who has hit that subscribe button, most of all. So again, I have a lot of family and friends that's on YouTube. That's on Facebook that's not subscribed over there to the channel on YouTube. So I just need for everybody, and I'm asking for everybody on Facebook, to go over on my channel on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. And if everybody does that today, I'll surpass what I need, which is the 13 subs. So look, I want to thank everybody for wishing your boy happy birthday, and we will be back. I just need to go in there and get my day started, put something on my stomach, and get the day started, and we will be back. So it's another one. I appreciate everybody, like I said, who's commented. And again, James Sanders, and everybody else, your boy Real Talk with Big Dave, DJ Shiny D, JoJo, everybody who's always helping your boy out, coming on the show, giving their advice, giving their topics. I thank everybody who's helped me get to this point, so we're going to continue growing, and I cannot grow without you guys helping me. So it's another one. It's your boy Dame D, and I am out. Peace.